think as a doctor, you would make sure that she was comfortable. So you might visit her in her home and initiate a conversation with her. You'll want to know whether she retains capacity. And as I said earlier, we must start from the assumption that she does. Everyone has capacity, unless proven otherwise. How would you then discern whether she does have capacity or not? Well, you've already told me that she has a diagnosis of dementia. So that might lead me to draw the conclusion that she might have a disorder of the brain. So there is a two-part test to decide whether someone has capacity, and anyone can conduct this test. So first of all, does that person have a disorder of the brain? In Elsie's case, the answer must be yes. She has a diagnosis of dementia. The second part is the more difficult, if you like, part of the test. So does that disorder mean that she is no longer capable of making a decision herself? And we answer that question by establishing whether she understands the information that you're giving to her, whether she is capable of retaining the information that you've given to her, and if she can weigh up and balance what you're saying to her. So you've got gangrene of the leg. Unless your leg is amputated, you are likely to die. Doesn't matter, I still don't want you to amputate my leg. Is that decision made after weighing up the pros and cons? So if the patient has capacity and says, well, I understand what you're saying to me, but on balance, I'm going to die anyway because I have a terminal illness. I would much rather you didn't amputate my leg. No matter how odd, strange, unreasonable we might consider that decision, if the person has capacity to make it, then that is their decision and we must abide by it. And the final thing I would say is, can Elsie actually communicate her decision to you? So it's very much a subjective test. If you know your patient well, or perhaps Amanda might say to you, well, 10 days ago my mother would have understood what you were saying to her, would have made a rational decision, would have weighed up what you're saying to her, but I'm not sure about that now. One way you might be able to test that is by asking certain questions and then going back maybe 10, 15 minutes later to see whether or not Elsie has actually retained what you've said to her. And it might be that, for example, she has capacity to say, I don't want to go into hospital, but she may not have capacity to answer your further question, which might involve, for example, well, if you were admitted to hospital, would you have any objection to a blood transfusion, for example? So she may be able to give consent. She may have capacity to answer one question, but not necessarily another. And so you should also consider in the round a person's beliefs. It might be, for example, that Elsie is a Jehovah's Witness, and that might be one of the reasons why she perhaps is going to refuse a blood transfusion.